Soapbox Derby started out as a whimsical statement that I made in the studio one day. I said, why don't we have a Soapbox Derby? Why don't we get the artists to build cars that would reflect their art or reflect their feelings or their fun, and we'd all get together and coast down the hill. We worked it out in such a way that we made some funds available to the artists to build these cars, and then the cars were sponsored by patrons and by business. So the sponsorship for a car was $250, and out of the $250, the artist got $100 to put against the materials it took to build the car. Then after the race, the artist could keep his car or sell it.
I was thinking about what to do with the $100. I converted them all into pennies. I would have a fantastic copper surface, a portrait of Lincoln. I needed like $120 worth of pennies, or 12,000 pennies. Plus, there was a lot of concern about the economy at the time, and I figured one way or the other I couldn't lose. If it was inflation or depression, you know, everything is going downhill.
I've never built any sort of vehicle before. I can't even fix my car.
It was just a challenge to conquer the use of even just very few tools. I still resent the fact that in high school I had to take home economics rather than shop.
At the time, I was very much involved in making tombstones. As I considered trophy, I couldn't help associating tombstones with some of the statistics that relate to automobiles.
We've set up a place out here in the sun, out in front of my studio, and my father-in-law and my son really got into the idea of making a soapbox racer.
I didn't know what to put on the top of this trophy, so I walked junkyards for 2 days, and I saw this great fender from a 1956 Buick.
One of the children was putting on a tennis shoe, and I looked at that tennis shoe, and I connect very heavily with Claes Oldenburg, and thought, why not a tennis shoe?
I always wanted to make a car like that. The idea of blowing up something in scale like pencil, which is usually thought of as being small, making it bigger, and then also using it for a racing car at the same time.
No power tools were used at all. In fact, it's a strange-looking beast until there's a person on it, and the logic of that two-wheel machine becomes evident.
I was looking for a naturally occurring aerodynamic shape. Banana is the fastest fruit I can think of.
It was so nice being in Berkeley. No one questions the idea of making a bread car. I went in the co-op and I was buying 3 75-pound bags of flour. And the guy says, what are you going to do? And I said, oh, I'm going to make a car. And he said, oh, far out. How are you going to make the molds? Fanny Farmer had a hot roll mix, and I figured rolls were appropriate. So I did that for the white bread. And then the black bread was a Russian rye, a pumpernickel. It was really a challenge to my baker's skill, and that was one of the things that I enjoyed most, balancing the doughs with the ingredients, the things that would speed up raising and things that would slow it down, and getting them both the same with different kinds of flours. It was one of the few things that I've had to do where I had to get the cooperation of other people. I had to find a professional bakery, Brothers Bagel Factory, and the oven was 6 feet long, and the oven door was like, a foot or 18 inches high, so that was the parameter of the pieces.
At the time, I was teaching at San Jose State, and the car was built by an advanced sculpture class. It took the complete semester to build a piece. I was trying to build the fastest, best car I could, but at the same time, I was trying to build a piece of sculpture. I liked the idea of hanging on a wall, visually. Then it started developing bisymmetrically, and I've always worked bisymmetrically. You couldn't really tell which was the front and which was the back part of the piece until I got in it. And then all of a sudden, we got aware of what it was going to cost. One student said, well, we'll each chip in $50. I said, well, if you'll each chip in $50, then we'll sell it afterwards, and we'll just divide the take. And I've never, ever heard of it happening that a student would enter a class, pay $50 for materials, and then get 5 times his money back in the end of the course.
Have you got a number? Hey, what did you steer that thing with?
Look at that one!
If I tried to get my kids to go to my own one-man show, they would say later, you know, but that really got them excited.
Usually when you go to a show, the art's on the walls, but it was neat to see it, like, moving.
I think people are sort of a little afraid of artists, and artists sometimes, you might say, a little standoffish from a non-artist. And this was kind of a natural catalyst to bring people together.
We had so much support from the art community that was overwhelming. We had around 75 cars and about 32 trophies designed by the artists.
It was the only event that I've really known of in all the years that I've been here that was fun for painters and sculptors and the museum people, and cutting across completely differences of style and schools of art and those kind of loyalties.
The kind of fun and joy that's in the Soapbox Derby is a very, very important element of art. I would call it a misnomer in our culture. For art to be important, it has to be, quote, serious, or for it to be collectible, to be in museums, to be able to be bought. A heaviness to it. And I think this is absolutely absurd. I mean, it's the absolute antithesis to creativity.
I just love the feeling that an artist could give something to the community that was out in the sunshine.
And especially my son, Max, enjoyed tremendously. He doesn't have vocabulary, but each time I show that picture of the event, always he said, that is a car.
The name of the car was the mark of the artist. The point being that, I would leave a mark behind. A little pink tempera paint would come out of the tip of the pen.
Really worked. I really didn't see anybody with a bad try. They went all the way, either conceptually, with their object, or whatever.
was the appeal for me, was that a soapbox, I could express my macho by getting involved in making this car. A reverse role-playing appeal.
I made a white satin coveralls. A lot of the sewing thing, I was doing it because my grandfather was a tailor, and I'd always, you know, since I was a kid, I'd sort of like sewing things together.
I grew up with a love for the automobile and hot rods, and then saw it suddenly as a monster. I did a car for the Soapbox Derby that was a bathtub that was filled with blood, and rather than have the car go down the course, I pulled the plug and let the blood run down the course.
I call it a he-she or a she-he because the front is male and the back is mostly female. On the sides, it's mostly heads or halves of faces and hands. They're all meant to hold the vibrators.
Usually men racing have a pit crew and girl groupies, so we decided to have our own version of that.
You ever see the engineering on that front hub drives me out of my mind. Lord, Lord.
I went to the Grand Prix in Long Beach after that and had a whole different understanding of what was going on.
As fast as you can go, you'll never fall over. So it's a very strange sensation. You know, there was just no way to predict exactly what it was going to feel like. It was quite a thrill. It was fun.
It was kind of like Le Mans at first because everybody was standing around their cars and you were kind of the heroes and these funny cars all over the place.
And I was really nervous about the pencil impaling somebody, so we flipped coins on about the three drivers, and we just tried to like tell the people to get back so that they wouldn't get wiped out.
Started to think, well, Jesus, this thing isn't even going to hold together, much less get down the hill.
We used to have this pet parade in this little town where I grew up, and it was like stage fright, right, waiting to go on, and I got very much the same kind of feeling.
Okay, they're ready. Clear the track, please. Clear the track.
I'd actually been in a Soapbox Derby when I was a boy, 12 years old, and that had been a lot of fun.
They're ready. Clear the track. Clear the track. You may not be able to move in time. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the flag is up on the first Artist Soapbox Derby. Down the track they come with reckless abandon.
First thing I found out is my butt was on the ground. It's kind of like being around a bunch of loose spaghetti. Everything was flexing, and I could hear a few pieces of wood popping.
Is Harry Powers, car number 2, sponsored by the ADI Gallery. Clear the track, please. Clear the track. Are you ready, Mr. Head? Let it roll!
I must say, I really enjoyed it when my car went down the hill and all these people were whistling and clapping. These were female bodies, and the thing had a kind of a sexual overtone. I had really thought of it more as spiritual than that.
Car number 12 has just made it to the bottom of the hill.
For those of you who are sitting on the sidelines, there may be some liability on that, depending on steering mechanisms, etc.
And the bicycle wheels were going so fast, all you could hear was this high-pitched hum. And people tell me I had a smile on my face the entire way down. It was just a tremendous, tremendous experience.
It was like sailing at a high wind.
You're on the pavement, ma'am. You're on the pavement. Please move off the pavement. Move off the pavement or I'll tell everybody you dyed your hair. I know that will please some of you.
Excitement of going down the hill was one of the highlights of my adult life.
Battenberg and Strabo, are you ready? Get set. Let it roll! There they The Battenberg and Struble car is roaring down the track. Whoop! Something is going clang clang in the middle of the car. Oh, his clanger just broke. But he's still going on, oblivious to a broken clanger. That's class. Everybody who's in the street is in the wrong place. Look out, look out!
It was sort of a funny feeling because there were so many adults who were driving the car, and you sort of felt small and a lot of power, though, for such a little kid. And it was really scary going down the hill. Like I was just holding on to the steering wheel and making sure that I'd stay on the road. And I can remember seeing all the crowds on the side going zipping right by. I was all dazed out and just making sure I went down the road.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, God forgive me, here comes the gorilla my dream. Coming down the hill. No, you don't understand, Fido.
The hill, I remember just like kids, just on each side, just making this sort of, the same thing. And that's really what the piece was at.
And here comes a complete calamity in engineering.
Very San Francisco car. That wouldn't happen in Los Angeles, that car.
Is the TV car ready? Oh, look out, his vertical hold just collapsed.
My steering collapsed, and I did a flip. I was inside, I was on TV.
Now at the starting line is the fabulous red car.
Went sailing off. I was going a million miles an hour. The back bumper flew off.
Look at her go. That is one fast biscuit.
The brake car, I thought, was made out of metal that was shaped like bread. But my mom told me that it was real bread. I didn't believe her.
I stood up on the seat and I grabbed a piece of the hood and threw it out. And then when I looked down again, it was all gone. There was just bread flying through the air, and I could see hunks of fenders going off, and it was all gone. The idea of making inedible bread things really turns me off. My God, what would I be doing with 100 pounds of stale bread now?
Expected to do a car, but it turns out that I think it's one of the nicest pieces I've ever did. It's one of the most fantastic aesthetic returns I've ever gotten. It turned out to be a performance piece.
So beautiful, so beautiful. Oh.
And I started to go down the hill, and I can only remember at the bottom the car getting liquid, and then I felt this incredible centrifugal force throwing me against the plastic canopy.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've just been informed that this car is a plant.
The one that those girls made with the sagebrush. I walked around that swing 3 or 4 times before I realized it was a car.
And at the finish line, the flag is down. And we have a winner.
The trophies were works of art, and they didn't have to function as a moving vehicle, and I think that made them just elegant.
It was still a slight alteration of the way a lot of those people worked.
My trophy was a pun on a trophy, plus a real trophy.
I got the trophy for being the most illusory. I didn't even quite know what the word meant.
In honor of the race, and I saved my toenails for the 6 weeks prior to making the trophy.
The race was front page, picked up by UP and AP,
as human interest, not as art, and picked up all over the world.
The whole race was a gift to the community. That kind of generosity really inspired me to be as generous with my work.
Now, perhaps it's significant this derby was outside, because I think that museums are in the future going to be moving more and more outside of their own past limitations.
I think the cars truly reflected probably what there is available, how people think and how people work, from the crudest to the most refined. I wish that different kinds of art were accepted that broadly.